Dear students, the Unit 3, I am giving you an introduction about its contents. Unit 3 is on library use studies. User is an important and integral part of a library. Books or electronic resources are continuously used for the acquisition of knowledge, for education, learning, research, and other academic activities. The user was a forgotten entity where we were concentrating more on the organization of the documents, the library resources. But the user, who is an integral part of the library or information center, cannot be put across, and he should be the part and parcel of the library organization. In the present context, the user is given a status of a customer whose demands are changing with time. So, this unit expresses the need. In this slide, we will see the objectives of this study as enumerated in the slide. To enter into the subject of use study, it is desirable to understand the objectives of the subject. They help us to systematically proceed with the study and to collect the relevant data to understand the different aspects of use studies in print, information, and electronic environment. The fourth is on introduction. In the introduction to the topic, we would know the importance of user and the resources of the library, and in this context, we will examine the quotation of Sayers, which emphasizes that the librarians, apart from the knowledge of theirs, should also know the wheres and should also know the people, in this context, the user. User study deals with use of library, and that is our first discussion. The use of information is our second topic, and the use of e-resources in the current scenario as impacted by ICT, and there is a steady growth of e-resources, and there is also growing trend in their use due to the growth of consortia of e-resources such as UGC InfoNet. In this part, we would examine some important studies on use studies. Some of the important studies in this context are listed, and highlights of these studies can be discussed. The first study is on Tobin. Tobin study includes the study of the published literature on use study from 1960 to 1973. He has collected the references from the library literature, an indexing journal in library and information science. He has published this particular paper in 1976, and the reference to the paper is available at the end of this unit. The second study is by Morris B. Line. A series of library surveys were conducted in late 1960s by Dr. Line and still continue to conduct these studies. In the University of Bath, these studies are even today are announced or published. You can see the URL link to the University of Bath given at the end of this particular unit under the references. You can also see the URL given in this particular slide. The link given here shows the surveys of e-resources. The third study is by Dr. J.D. Bernal and Dr. Rolf Shaw, made in 1948 and 1958 respectively, in the two international conferences on scientific information held in London and Washington, again respectively in time. The fourth one is on the growth of e-resources, as already stated. In the context of enhanced use of e-resources, in the recent years, the Wikipedia has discussed on the decline of the library use, and again you can go to the URL link which gives you the complete details about the declining or the changes in the library use. Another very interesting study which emphasizes on the e-resources is by Van Dyke and McKenzie from the publisher point of view and also from the point of view of the librarians. The publishers are interested in the pattern of publishing the e-content, whereas the librarians are interested in the pricing of the e-content for the acquisition of the e-resources for their libraries. These studies, from the first one by Tobin to the Van Dyke, cover or give an overview of the changing context of use studies from print media to electronic media and the work of notable information scientists like Line, Bernal, Shaw, who pioneered a methodology of use and user studies. In this presentation, how the use studies are changing with changes in the organization and management of libraries, advent of information and electronic environment have been highlighted. The changing environments are three. The first one is physical environment, that includes the library and information use. The second one is information use environment, and the third one is electronic and digital environment. Let us study the use of resources in the physical environment. Let us recall the first law of library science. The books are for use. The law changed the basic philosophy from preservation to use. The importance to use the books is enunciated by Dr. S.R. Ranganathan through the first law. To repeat again, the books are for use. This has given rise to growing interest in the library use study. So let us examine the following points on use studies in the context of physical environment, its purpose, objectives, methodology, and some parameters and models of use studies. In the use in physical environment, we have identified two important studies. The studies done by Mukherjee and Zweig. In the process, some authors have created models on the use study and also see their details and the results. The Mukherjee study is unique one, and so far such studies have not been conducted in India. Even though the study relates to USA and UK public libraries, the outcome of the study are relevant to the public library use in our country, that is in India too. The findings are compared on three aspects of the use. 1. Circulation per capita with titles per capita in circulation to users. Second, use of books with amount spent on the purchase of the books, that is expenditure. Third one is the coefficient of correlation between circulation and titles per capita. The students are advised to read this particular article for the details of the formulation of these three aspects. The reference to this particular paper is given at the end under the references. The second study, as mentioned by me, is on the unique formula ECU, means effective circulation per user. This paper is also quoted at the end. Then you can also formulate what is the effective usage of the books per user. There are three distinct models on the use studies of the library books. They are by McGrath, Buckland, and New. Each one highlight three distinct models, that is, comparison of books with circular subject or comparison of books with curricular subjects, number of books available in the library and their use, and the third model deals with the interlibrary loan transaction analysis. These studies are also very important that they cover the distinct models on the use studies in three different environment. One is they compare the curricular subjects, that is your syllabus. Then the second, the number of books available in the library and their use. And the third one is how many books are borrowed or lent on interlibrary loan, and this transaction analysis. This slide is on the information use study. The 1970s saw a shift from book to information. It moved from physical document delivery to content delivery, that is information. So the scenario changed from book to information, and the term information was defined in various contexts, from the sources, from the organization point of view, from its properties, from individuals, and so on. The content also varied from subject to subject and to individual needs, and that is the characteristics of information. The concept of information use studies using the questionnaire was initiated by Dr. J.D. Bernal and then Dr. Rolf Shaw. This was focused more on the scientific information and scholarly information. Another important concept evolved in this context of information use is the behavioral aspect of the user and use studies. The study of citations, that is, the references appended to the papers, are also used to identify users' information use pattern. So, a new wave was started from library use to information use, and in the 1970s, even though the foundation for the emergence was laid in the 1950s. The difference in this context, we also would know the purpose, objectives, and methodology and measurement of information use studies. The differences on the information use study or on the types of information, and there are two categories of information. One is factual data, another is conceptual information. We will not go into detail of this within the context of this particular unit, but we will study the three purposes of information use studies which are stated here below. Designing appropriate new information systems and services is one of the important purposes of the study of the information used by the users. The second is optimizing the allocation of the operating resources by customizing services to selected clientele or users. The third one is fine-tuning the delivery of information within the existing systems, that is, giving the information to those who are in critical need of it. The main objective of information use study is on the planning and the design of information systems, services, and products in order to meet the user's anticipatory and on-demand information needs. Methods adopted in the study of information use, like survey methods, using the questionnaire as the tool, observation of how the users use the information, conducting reference interviews, those who have already acquired information and finding how the information is being adopted in their activity, and the last and the least one, recent one, is the use of the citations, for which already we have mentioned before. Now we will move to the last environment or the current environment, that is the electronic environment, or very popularly known as the digital era. The digital era or the electronic era has descended on library and has been responsible for the genesis and the growth of electronic information resources, known as popularly EIR, and this is happening in the last 2 decades. The scholarly literature, especially the e-journals and now the e-books, are now have the virtual access to these resources, and it has become one of the commonplace in the present context. In this situation, there is a decline in the library use, for which already a reference has been made to a Wikipedia article. That there is a growth in e-publishing from reference databases to full-text databases, and this has given rise to new groups of information providers, vendors, and also information delivery on users' desktop from aggregators, consolidators. Outsourcing has become a new paradigm of scholarly publishing. Emergence of e-resources, digital library consortia is a new information infrastructure for scholarly literature. In India today, as many as 21 electronic information resources, digital library consortia are in operation, such as Users Infonet, FERA, INDEST, CSIR consortia, DRDO consortia, and so on. As already mentioned, the publishers want to monitor the use, and therefore they have created some inbuilt mechanism to collect the usage data of electronic information resources by the end users. This will also help e-publishers in their publishing strategies and pricing for different services like access only, article-wise pricing, subscription to digital libraries, and so on. There is need for monitoring the use on international standards, so the publisher has created 2 software tools to monitor the usage, to collect the data, and that will help the publisher and user institutions on the publishing and access decisions. The two tools are Counter and Sushi. This slide gives a brief information on the tool Counter. One of the popular tools for monitoring and collection of e-resources information usage data is Counter, which stands for Counting Online Usage of Networked Electronic Resources. The Counter was created in March 2002. It has standardized the record and report online usage statistics of electronic resources in consistent, credible, and compatible manner. In the first phase, it covered usage of journals and reference databases till 2003. From 2006, it also covers online books and reference books. It has codes of practices for collecting usage data, which ensures credibility and justification for collecting usage data. This is a well accepted practice adopted by the vendors. Counter issues periodical reports on the usage, and in this context, Counter 3 on ACM Digital Library usage has been regarded as useful to the librarians. The second tool is Sushi. Sushi stands for Standardized Usage Harvesting Initiative, which was initiated by the National Information Standards Organization, briefly NISO USA. This is the second tool that enables libraries to gather usage statistics across multiple publishers' platforms. This is different in the sense that a user need not have to log on into each search, but like a meta search engine, it compiles usage statistics across different or multiple publishers by single logon and search. Both Counter and Sushi use standard protocols to facilitate automatic collection and harvesting and consolidate of usage data from different vendors, and you can get more details on Counter or Sushi by going to their respective websites. In conclusion, the unit has compiled a good number of studies on library use, information use, use of e-resources. it is important that students would use them in their practice. For example, the case of books use, the study by Mukherjee is very useful to evaluate use of public libraries. The studies on information use present an overview of understanding of information needs of the user and information seeking behavior, which has been a topic of discussion even in the web environment. The student should be quite aware of the tools for the usage studies on e-resources like Counter and Sushi, because the organizations subscribing to the e-resources would like to know how the resources are used, as a substantial amount of money is spent on their subscriptions. So, use studies are very important in print, information, and in e-resources environment. Good day. Thank you very much.